friends, I'm Arpit and I'm here with today's analysis. Today is 1st of July and today the three new criminal laws have been enacted. Out of these three, we will be discussing one in today's class, that is Bhartiya Nyay Sanhita Act. This law has replaced the Indian Penal Code of 1862. And in the coming videos, that is tomorrow, we will be discussing the remaining two acts. So this Bhartiya Nyay Sanhita is basically an overall, I would say, a penal code for crimes committed. Crimes like terrorism have been defined, crimes like organized crime, love jihad, sedition, fake news, and that fake news spreading violence. All these have been defined in this new law. This new law is being criticized on the fact that the way they were passed in the parliament that happened last year in the winter session was not appropriate. They were not debated enough. Obviously, there are certain criticisms to this fact, like this particular law deletes section 377 of IPC completely. However, Supreme Court decriminalized it in 2018 in the Navtej Singh Johar versus Union of India case. But if any forceful homosexuality happens, that was penalized. But since it has been removed completely, so that forceful homosexuality has also been decriminalized. Such shortcomings are there with the bill. So what are the provisions of the bill and all, we will see in this. But yes, before proceeding forward, we should see the three bills. The Bhartiya Nyay Sanhita bill. This is the Indian Penal Code 1860. It is the old law. This is the new bill which is going to replace it, the new act now. Then Bhartiya Sakshiya bill. Indian Evidence Act of 1872 is going to be replaced by the Bhartiya Sakshiya bill. Third is Code of Criminal Procedure, that is CRPC of 1898, is going to be replaced by Bhartiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita Bill. So these three bills are collectively called as the three criminal laws in India. We are going to discuss this one in this particular video, and these two we will be discussing in tomorrow's session. So this Bhartiya Nyay Sanhita Bill, this is going to replace the Indian Penal Code of 1860. We know that. The new bill seeks to include issues like love jihad, terrorism, organized crimes, mob lynching, and such like. Love jihad, when persons of X community are engaging in relationships with persons of Y community with the pretext of reducing the population of Y community, considering here that Y community is a female. And the main purpose is not, I would say, establishing a decent or good relationship. The main purpose of that relationship is, vengeance. The main purpose of that relationship can also be targeting the reduction of population and increase of population of the other community. So that has been defined and that has been penalized under this Bhartiya Nyaya Sanhita. Terrorism. Although there exists a law for terrorism, that is UAPA, terrorism has been defined in UAPA also, that is Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. But here in this particular law, there is another definition of terrorism, and it is unclear whether the terrorism cases under this BNS will be superseding the terrorism cases under UAPA or not. Then next is organized crime. For the very first time, the central government has provisions related to organized crime in this Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita Act. Earlier, there was a state law that was made by the Maharashtra government, Maharashtra Control of Organized Crime Act, MCOCA, which was dealing explicitly with organized crimes. But here in Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, we have included provisions with respect to organized crime as well. Organized crimes are those crimes which are financial in nature, committed by an organization like structure. So this has been covered. Mob lynching. Mob means group of people, lynching means to kill. So when a group of people kills one, two, or maybe three people on the pretext of administering justice, that is called as mob lynching. So the incidents of mob lynching grew too much in the country in the recent past. So that has also been included, and Supreme Court also told the government of India in 2018 to include provisions related to mob lynching in the laws. So that has been there. Changes in provisions related to sedition, fake news, and mandatory minimum sentence have been done in this law. So, what are the changes done? What are these things? We will see in this particular topic as we progress. Now, the promise to marry. This is basically the provision related to love jihad. It introduces clause 69 that seems to ostensibly tackle the love jihad narrative by criminalizing deceitful promise to marry. So what is deceitful meaning? Deceitful means shall include the false promise of employment or promotion, inducement, or marrying after suppressing identity. So, this, if it happens, and in the due course, if sexual intercourse and also happens, then that will be a crime. If it is proved that there were not that kind of intentions, like of marrying a particular person and having a peaceful married life, a good married life, but the purpose was something else. The purpose was targeting one community so that, you know, uh, vengeance, or I would say uh, ego satisfaction can happen. So in that cases, you know, punishments will be given. In case of mob lynching, so mob lynching, as I told you, that in the pretext of administering justice, if you know we kill someone, then that happens. BNH provisions codify offences linked to mob lynching. For cases when a mob of 5 or more individuals commits murder based on factors such as race, caste, community, or personal belief, the provision has punishment that extends from life imprisonment to death. In its earlier version, because this was the second version of the bill, there was another earlier version. The bill had proposed a minimum sentence of 7 years, but that was brought at par with murder now. It is, life imprisonment or death. Supreme Court in 2018 had asked the center to consider a separate law for lynching, which the government has included it as part of the Bhartiya Nyay Sanhita. Next is organized crime. Organized crime, when a group of people, means they are organized in a proper hierarchy. This kind of organization is there, and this kind of organization is committing crimes. What kind of crimes? Largely their crimes are financial crimes. So this type of organized crime was not defined under any law in India by the center. However, there was a state law, that was Maharashtra Control of Organized Crime Act 1999, MCOCA. But in the center, there was no law. But now there is. And in this, as per the provisions, punishment for attempt to commit organized crime and for committing organized crime, even if you are attempting or if you are committing organized crime, is the same. But a distinction is drawn based on whether death is caused or not by the alleged offense. If death is caused, then obviously life imprisonment or death penalty will be given. For cases involving death, punishment ranges from life imprisonment to death. But where there is no death involved, a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years is prescribed, which may be extended to life imprisonment. Petty organized crime have also been there. Theft, snatching, cheating, unauthorized selling of tickets, unauthorized betting or gambling, selling of public examination question papers have been included as well. So these are categorized as petty organized crimes. So they will also be penalized. But yes, the punishments for petty organized crimes will not be at par with the organized crimes which have been mentioned over here. That is 5 years or can be extended to life imprisonment. Now, terrorism. Terrorism is something which is very, very, I would say, common, especially in a country like India. But the sad part with terrorism is that we do not have a proper definition of terrorism which is universally accepted. So at the global level, there is no such definition of terrorism which is universally accepted, means accepted by all. Because terrorism or terrorist for one country can be a hero for the other country. So like this. But respective countries, according to their respective laws, have defined terrorism. And in India, terrorism has been defined in UAPA. Now, terrorism has also been defined in the Bhartiya Nyay Sanhita. It defines terrorism as an act that intends to threaten the unity, integrity, and security of the country, intimidate the general public, or disturb public order. Importing large parts of the language in defining terror activities from the stringent Unlawful Atrocities or Activities Prevention Act has been done. So, largely the definition under UAPA and here are same. of terrorism. But yes, it is unclear how both the UAPA and BNS will operate concurrently when cases of terrorism will be there. Whether that person will be tried under UAPA or that person will be tried under BNS. UAPA has special courts. BNS does not have special courts. They will go to the normal judiciary. So let us see how this unfolds. Then attempt to suicide. This has also been made a criminal offense over here. And especially if you are sitting on a dharna or you are threatening any government official that I will give my life if you don't do this, then you will be penalized under BNS. You cannot do that. Whoever attempts to commit suicide with the intent to compel or restrain any public servant from discharging his official duty and prescribes a jail term which may extend to 1 year with community service is there. So you cannot threaten a government servant that I'm going to take my life, else you do this. This is not acceptable. This provision could be invoked to prevent self-immolations and hunger strikes during protests. Then comes gender neutrality. So this Bhartiya Nyay Sanhita is targeting gender neutrality. How it is targeting? There are three examples in front of us. We will see. The BNS has tweaked certain laws, especially those dealing with children, as gender neutral. First, the offences dealing with procuration of a girl for illicit intercourse, Section 366A of the IPC, has been made gender neutral. If procuration of a girl or a boy happens for forceful or illicit intercourse, then that will be a penalizing offence. For the offence dealing with kidnapping of minors, the IPC, the older law, Section 361, prescribes different age limits, 16 years for male and 18 years for a female. The BNS makes it 18 for both. So again, gender neutrality is getting achieved over here. Then for adults, the offence of outraging the modesty of women, 354A of the IPC it was, and voyeurism, 354C, now has gender neutrality for both accused under the BNS, which means that women can also be booked under the law if women are involved in voyeurism or if they are outraging the modesty of a man. So this has become gender neutral, which is, I would say, a good thing. Then fake news is also dealt with in this Bhartiya Nyaya Sanhita, because in this era of social media, fake news is quite, I would say, common. So IPC currently contains Section 153B, which deals with imputations, assertions prejudicial to national integration. This is commonly referred to as hate speech. If fake news is targeting spreading of hate speech, which can lead to tensions between two communities, then that will be a penalized offense. If it is causing disharmony or feelings of enmity or hatred or ill will, then that will be a problem. The BNS introduces a new provision here which criminalizes publishing false and misleading information. Then comes sedition. Sedition is simply, when you are going against your own country. Earlier, this was named as Rajdroh because Britishers introduced it, Section 124A of the IPC it was. And now it has been renamed as Deshdroh. From Rajdroh to Deshdroh. This is one such thing. In Hindi, it will be called as Deshdroh, not Rajdroh. So, under a new name and with a wider definition, it is happening. So, what is the wider definition? We will see. The new provision brings under its sweep aiding through financial means acts of subversive activities. Means if you are financing any activity which is going against the country, then also that will be considered as sedition, which was earlier not there in Section 124A of the IPC. So its ambit has increased. And those encouraging feelings of separatist activities, they will also be targeted, whether they are here in India or they are here on outside land. The Khalistanis example definitely comes to my mind when I talk about this. This provision has incorporated the Supreme Court guidelines in the 1962 Kedarnath Singh case, which upheld the constitutional validity for the crime of sedition. Sedition is a crime, and the Supreme Court has upheld its constitutional validity. It is not unconstitutional, and the case was this Kedarnath Singh case. And the provisions which have been included over here in the BNS with respect to sedition are also in line with the judgment of the Kedarnath case. Then mandatory minimum sentence. If you commit any offense, there are provisions of mandatory minimum of sentence that, this much minimum, though you will get the punishment. So Section 303 of IPC prescribed a mandatory death sentence for murder committed by a life convict. So before 1983, anyone who was involved in murder had to be hanged till death. But in 1983, the Supreme Court struck down the provisions as unconstitutional. Why? Because it took away the discretion of the judges in awarding a sentence. It should be left to the discretion of the judges, no, whether they want to award a death sentence or life imprisonment. So that was removed. The BNS has now tweaked this provision to prescribe a punishment of death or imprisonment for life, which shall mean that remainder of that person's natural life. So if a person is engaged in murder and it is proved, so either death sentence will be given to that person, means that person will be hanged till death, or imprisonment for life means the remainder of your life you will remain in jail, you will not come out. So making it stringent. Earlier, life imprisonment was for 7 years, 14 years, 21 years, like this. In several other provisions, mandatory minimum sentences are prescribed. While the prescription of a minimum sentence limits the scope for judicial discretion and arbitrariness, it is seen to be unfair to the convict as well, whose mitigating circumstances, such as if they are a first time offender or the sole breadwinner in the family, are often overlooked. Means these kind of factors will not be considered of a convict if that person is a sole breadwinner or in what circumstances that murder was committed by that person. Minimum mandatory sentence has to be served, so has to be served. There is no flexibility with the judiciary in interpreting or in awarding the, I would say, sentences for those people. Deletions from IPC. There are certain deletions also from the IPC. First is unnatural sexual offense. So section 377 of the Indian Penal Code, which was which actually was that if any person is engaging in homosexuality, means persons of the same sex are engaging in any sexual intercourse, then that was a crime. But in 2018, Supreme Court said that 377 should be struck down. It should not be a crime. The people should have the freedom. In the Navtej Singh Johar case, this judgment was given. So Section 377 was struck down. And now, after the striking down of this, Section 377 of IPC, one, I would say, element of Section 377 remained, and that was that if homosexuality is being done forcefully, then that should be penalized. Obviously, that should be penalized. You should give freedom of speech and expression. You should be giving the freedom to the people to engage in homosexual activities. But what if that homosexual activity is being done forcefully? Isn't that wrong? That was earlier available. Section 377 could be invoked in those cases. But now, in the Bhartiya Nyay Sanhita, completely this Section 377 has been deleted. Then there will be a problem. Adultery. The offense of adultery, which was struck down by the Supreme Court as unconstitutional in 2018, has been omitted under the BNS. Adultery has been omitted. Thugs. The IPC under Section 310 criminalizes those who have been habitually associated with any or others for the purpose of committing robbery or child stealing by means of accompanied with murder. So certain tribal groups were charged under this falsely. So this has also been removed. So these are the removals or deletions from IPC. Criticisms of this bill: it provides protection from prosecution to a person of unsound mind. BNS changes this to a person with mental illness. And definition of mental illness excludes mental retardation and includes abuse of alcohol and drugs. So any mentally retarded person is committing any crime, so that will be that person will be freed. That is not, I would say, justiciable, I would say, because if even if that person is of unsound mind, doesn't mean that that person engages himself or herself in such kind of activities. Then definition of terrorism includes an act that intends to intimidate public order, means this gives extraordinary interpretation powers to the state. You interpret, and if according to you that is a terrorist act, do that. Several offenses overlap with special laws. In many cases, both carry different penalties for or provide for different procedures. This may lead to multiple regulatory regimes, additional cost of compliance, and possibility of leveling multiple charges. So that is there overlapping with special laws like terrorism with UAPA. So we don't know, we don't have any clarity as of now. And then BNS omits section 377 of IPC. Now, section 377 was still invoked to penalize non-consensual sex and is often the only recourse in case of rape of men. But now, since 377 is completely removed, we do not have that provision. If that homosexuality is happening forcefully, it is not a crime. So this is there. Now we come to the MCQs. Consider the following offences and mark which of them have been defined for the very first time under the Bhartiya Nyay Sanhita. Love jihad, sedition, fake news, or both A and C. So very carefully answer this. Consider the following statements and mark the correct one. BNS has scrapped section 377 of IPC, which criminalized homosexuality. BNS aims to establish gender neutrality. Which among these statements is correct? Comparatively an easier question. The third is, which of the following offences are defined as crimes under BNS? Love jihad, organized crime, sedition, spreading fake news, homosexuality. You have to find the correct combination. Not difficult, I would say. Fourth question, consider the following statements and mark the correct one. Sedition has a new name, that is Rajbro under the Bhartiya Nyay Sanhita. The scope of sedition has increased under the BNS. Which of these statements are correct? And the last question, consider the following statements and mark the correct one. Terrorism has been defined under the BNS. BNS is the first law to have an explicit definition of terrorism in India. BNS will supersede the UAPA when it comes to cases related to terrorism. Only one, only two, both one and two, or neither. Sorry, D option I'll give you here. It's missing over here. All the statements are correct. This is going to be the D option. So think very carefully and mark the correct one. Now discussing the MCQs of 29th June, consider the following statements and mark the correct one. Boeing is the second private owned space agency in USA after SpaceX. No, there are 17 private space agencies in USA. Boeing is the second to take humans to space after SpaceX. So taking humans to space is not mentioned though. This statement is wrong. SpaceX has the capabilities of launching manned missions to low Earth orbit. This is correct and hence B is the right answer for this. Which of the following space agencies is not part of the International Space Station? Roscosmos is part of it. European Space Agency is part of it. Japan is part of it. Apart from these three, Canadian Space Agency is part of it and NASA is part of it. So these five space agencies, France is not part of it and hence this is the right answer. Then the third question, consider the following statements and mark the correct one. The ISS, that is International Space Station, is located in the low Earth orbit, which is true. 430 kilometers and low Earth orbit can extend up to 2000 kilometers. The ISS acts like a laboratory in the space. Yes, that is why these astronauts go there to perform experiments in microgravity. Both are correct. So C option is correct. Fourth, consider the statements and mark the correct one. First is France has a bicameral legislature with members elected directly by the people in both the houses. This is wrong. Bicameral legislature is true, but directly elected by people in both the houses, this particular part makes this statement wrong. The president of France is elected directly by the people. This statement is correct. So only 2 is going to be the correct answer for this, that is B. And last is consider the following and mark how many of them are correct. So how many is the keyword over here. Cohabitation is a situation in French politics where president and prime minister belong to different political factions. This is true. We studied explicitly about cohabitation. Second, the president of France can remove the prime minister from office. It is not true because the president can request the resignation of the prime minister. He cannot remove. The cabinet of the France is appointed by the president. This statement is also correct. The cabinet of France is appointed by the president on the recommendations of the prime minister. So this statement is correct. So only 2 statements are correct and hence B is the correct answer for this particular question. Now with this, we come to an end of today's session. I will be seeing you tomorrow now with more such informative news pieces. Till then, you guys very well know what to do. Keep studying, keep reading, keep writing, and most importantly, keep revising. Keep watching the videos, keep attempting the questions. See you tomorrow. Namaste. Jai Hind.